What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Cheese Talk podcast. I'm your host, Brian, and tonight I am joined by the Sproles, a fellow Packer backer here in Wisconsin. What's going on, man? How you doing?
We're getting ready for Snowmageddon tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I think the whole state's shutting down tomorrow. Um, with the first week of free agency wrapped up, what are your thoughts on the Packers' move so far this year?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think overall we knew going into the season that they were going to lose some guys, and they lost some guys. We probably didn't see the Rashawn Gary trade happening at the beginning of last year, but given how things kind of ended with him, I think he needs a fresh start. And we brought in a couple of veteran guys, which is quite a bit of a departure for our GM to bring in 30-year-old and 30-year-old plus guys. So it's going to be interesting, and as the wheel turns. But the Packers have always been a draft and develop team, and in Gutey we trust. So let's go forward.
Yeah, and before free agency, we had some extensions up in the front office with Russ Ball, Gutey and Matt LaFleur. What are your thoughts about those three getting extended together?
Um, I'm a big believer in continuity. I think it's worked for Pittsburgh up until this year. When Tomlin stepped aside, it worked in Baltimore until this year when John Harbaugh stepped aside. So I think that continuity is a good thing. I kind of wished we knew we were going to lose Halfley. I don't not completely comfortable with Jonathan Gannon, but we'll see. And I think Brian has had some really good things, and he's had a few questionable moves, but I think that's kind of true of most of them. So I'm good with rolling it back with those guys and giving them another shot. I certainly think that we're in a sweet spot right now. I think next year we're going to get a whole bunch of draft picks. I think we're going to have some good cap room. So I think overall they've positioned the team well to succeed, and let's give them a shot.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I've had my thoughts about LaFleur in the last couple of years, but you look at his games where he's calling a good game, and you wouldn't trade him for anything in the world. And the few bad games that he has, yeah, they've been like historic, but I guess I'd rather take the bad with the good. And I think we would have regretted him going somewhere else.
Well, the proof I think is that if for whatever reason he left, he would have been probably the most sought after, coach in that hiring circle. So you saw what happened with Vrabel when he left Tennessee, went to New England, and did incredibly well. And I think LaFleur would be the same. I think he would have gone somewhere in a heartbeat and done well. So that's why I say, finding good coaches is not that easy. And when you've got one, I think you hold on to them. So uh, I was, as a hometown guy, I was kind of hoping for Jimmy Leonard at defensive coordinator, and Buffalo got him. So that's one of those things that we'll see with Gannon. I mean, he had a good run with Philly, but he did have an all-star team on defense when he was there. And then, of course, in Arizona, they struggled, but that's Arizona.
Yeah,
They've had a hard time doing much of anything, at least during my lifetime.
now it's crazy now that LaFleur's brother is the coach there. Um, but yeah, with Gannon, the one thing I like about the Packers and their coordinators that they're getting, they all used to be former head coaches. I think they have maybe some more discipline in them and maybe some more outlook on the game and can coach the position better than what we've had in the past. So I
Yeah,
think that's a good thing for the Packers.
they also both of them both have their both Halfley and Gannon have chops in the defensive backfield, and that's clearly where we need the most help. I mean, I think our front seven is shaping up pretty well, but I'm still worried about the secondary. So it helps that you have a good guy back there, and also I think the guy that they got as one of their secondary coaches, Bobby Babich, and
Yeah.
it took me a second because he shares his name with his dad, who was also a really successful coach. But Bobby was the defensive coordinator for Buffalo last year, so
Okay.
I like the fact that they got some pretty talented guys there. So we'll see what happens.
Sorry, my wife just brought me some Costco frozen cold brew coffee mixture thing or whatever. But
Just what you
no,
need,
and
more
the thing,
caffeine.
and I've been getting the decaf coffee because I drink it pretty much around the clock. So decaf
Okay.
is every once in a while I get regular. But no, I go back to you mentioned the secondary. I've been hard on on our secondary all this last year, but you look at if we can get pressure on that quarterback within that 3 second window. I always say the 3 second under rule, because if you can get to the quarterback in 3 seconds, our cornerbacks last year were all pro corners. But once you let the quarterback have more than 3 seconds, any quarterback's going to burn our defense. You know what I'm saying? So it's you can't have a cornerback chasing the receiver for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds. He's going to get burned.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, you know. And if you when you have players on the near side flushing a quarterback out, and you have your defensive end from the far side burn him by the guy jogging after Caleb Williams, that's a problem. That's why he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. That's today's game.
When we get to the position by position, rundown, I have a few thoughts on that. But you're right. I mean, it's pretty clear that once Parsons went down, that ability to pressure quick, especially with Wyatt out too. So Parsons and Wyatt both out. That's when we really look pretty bad. So there's a lot of emphasis, and I don't think Gannon is a blitz crazy type of coach. So we're going to have to win with pressure from the front four and not be looking at any fancy things
I
off the
think too. You
offense.
got wasn't Gannon Hargraves coach in Philly? So I mean, if we can get by with at least a 500 record before we get Micah Parsons back on the lineup, I think we'll be in good shape. Depending on what we draft this year, but I mean, we got. I think Lucas Van Ness is bound to have a breakout year. Yeah, he's just too big not to.
Right.
His stature, I mean, he's just huge.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, this is a key year because I think they didn't. I forget whether they picked up his fifth year option or not, which is his fifth year would be next year. So this is his fourth year, but there's a real lot of pressure on him to to pay off the dividend about where he was selected. He was selected really really high. So yeah, I actually like LVN as kind of a chess piece that they can move inside in some situations. So I think they I'm still looking for them to still have some juice coming from the outside on the other side from Parsons. But we'll see what happens with that.
I mean, come on, you're 6'5", 272 pounds. I mean, how can you not be a force out
and,
there?
and he can move too. He's a good athlete at that size, so yeah. I mean, I think he's like I said. I kind of like him almost as a tween guy, between end and tackle, and maybe you don't know where he's going to line up. I noticed in 24 that they did some really nifty things with twists and stunts. And that seemed to work. And last year they weren't doing it that much. Now, part of that I think was with Parsons, it's just kind of leave him alone, let him win. But that playing some of those games. I mean, Van Ness can be a wrecker in there with, like you
Yeah,
said, with his speed and his size. So
yeah. I don't know. It sucks some of the players that we lost, but I'm also a believer in addition by subtraction. And obviously we can get younger guys in there. I mean, you go back and you look last year. If you break down like how much money Rashawn Gary made per sack, it's absolutely disgusting. You know,
And wasn't he supposed to count something like 24 million against the cap this year? So I think somebody said it. I think he renegotiated his deal with Dallas, but I think before that he was set to make more than Micah Parsons, which is ridiculous, right?
yeah. And everyone's
So
saying that Micah took all of our money. Micah was out for what? Not how many games? Six.
something like that, yeah.
I mean, in your defensive end, your job is to like sack the quarterback. The last 9 games of the season, you had no sacks. It's now he. I mean, in his earlier years, he was good, and you would have thought, and I think we all thought with adding Micah Parsons opposite of get Rashawn Gary would have made his numbers go up, but they went, especially when he went out, you know,
Right.
and he just,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and the other thing about Gary was never a full time player. I mean, was lucky to get 60% of the snaps, and his performance kind of was trending down the whole time. He got off to a really good start, then he had that knee injury, and I'm not sure he ever fully came back. And by the way, that's my number one concern going into next year is probably three of their top 5 or 6 players are coming off very serious injuries. And we don't know that they're going to be able to recapture what they were doing. Of course, I'm talking about Michael Parsons, Tucker Kraft, and Zach Tom. And so we don't know that they're going to necessarily be 100% of what they were. And that to me is a concern. If we could wave our magic wand and on opening day, those guys are just like they were, at the beginning of 2025, then I'm optimistic. I think we've got a great chance. But that's my number one concern is those 3 guys are a huge part of what makes our team great. And if they're not either not playing, and like you said earlier, I doubt that Parsons is going to start the season. I mean, I think he'll start it on the pup. But even when he comes back at some point in the season, will he be that guy that we saw before he went down in Denver? And I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, even if not, I still think he's gonna draw the attention until he proves teams
Right.
otherwise.
Right.
So I think getting back a healthy Devontae White, you got Hargrave next to him, and then you have, like I said, Ben Nast and Micah Parsons. You got Wilson or Edger and Cooper, and
Right.
I just think it's going to be a different look defense, a younger, hungrier defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um,
I still think they have work to do at cornerback, but we'll see. I mean, we thought they were going to do something last year, and of course, the Nate Hobbs things turned out horribly. That was probably one of Gutenku's worst signings. But I'm not, as of right now, as of Pi Day, March 14th, I don't see it. I don't think we're any better, at cornerback than we were last year. So
yeah, I mean, like you said, the thing I like about Saint, how he pronounce his last name, Saint Huste or Juste or whatever his name is, I like his
something like
size.
that.
He's 6'3".
Hmm.
He's not afraid to tackle. You swap him out with Keyshawn Nixon last year in that goal line video of him running away from the tackle. I think you would have had him in there at least trying to stop the guy from scoring.
It's interesting because just recently I was looking at something, and I'm not 100% sure what scheme Gannon plays, but in the typical Tampa 2 type defense, they ask the cornerbacks to come up and kind of mug the wide receivers in the legal zone, right? And that does 2 things. It kind of slows them getting off the line of scrimmage, um, and it also you know gives that cornerback a little time to read the play and read where the ball's going to be going. And you're right. I mean, the new kid. Let's be honest. He was not starting for the Chargers. He was kind of their nickel or their fifth or their third cornerback. Um, but he has a body type that we just don't have there, right? None of those guys are built like that. So I think, and also the other thing too is he's a really good tackler. So that's another big thing. And again, running at Tampa 2, cover 2 kind of defense, they really rely on those cornerbacks to be, in the run game, to help out there. So, like you said, that's an area where we weren't that strong. And you pulled out Nixon, but I mean, Carrington Valentine is actually, I think, a worse offender. He can play the ball pretty well, but man, I mean, there are tons of plays where he misses critical tackles. So that's a big part of the defenses. Can we bring the guys down when we get them?
Yeah, it says Jonathan Gannon operates a multiple 3-4-4-3 hybrid defensive scheme, heavily reliant on a split safety match coverage, specifically cover four quarters and a four-man rush. The scheme focuses on limiting explosive plays by keeping defenders deep, often allowing short underneath passes, and disguise its coverages rather than high blitz rates. So I don't know.
Sounds like Joe Barry.
I I would like to see Cooper getting after that quarterback, especially Caleb Williams.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
want him to
exactly.
reenact that hit last year when part of the helmet went flying. But instead of
Yeah.
it being a running back, it can be Caleb Williams.
There you go. Yeah, the thing that I always that irked me, and like I said, we tend to go after Rashawn Gary on this one, but we know that Williams loves to escape to the right side, and I just thought that there were too many situations where we gave up the edge, the corner there, and allowed him to get outside. So I'm with you. I mean, I think we need to be really focused on, bringing the heat, making the quarterbacks feel pressure, and limiting their ability to get out of the pocket. The problem is that's hard to do with a 4-man rush, So that's what we're gonna have to see,
And
And
one
and I
thing
agree with you.
too is, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I agree with you that I'm waiting for them to weaponize Edgerrin Cooper because he's an exciting kind of player, and I think he's only scratched the surface of his ability so far.
Yeah, the thing that drove me nuts this last year, and I guess maybe it's been Jordan's whole career in Green Bay, but you give me the line that either Favre or Rodgers had, and when they used his head as a basketball in Denver and bounced it off the ground, the people on the sidelines for the Packers, the special teams unit, wherever the reserves, they had more fire from what happened to Love than the actual starters that were out there playing with him during the game. Josh Sitton, TJ Lang, they would have thrown hands out there. And they need that type of intensity and stick up for the quarterback. Why didn't anybody go after him? And when the Bears, whatever his name is, that end that Lord, everyone said that Jordan Love lowered his head. Well, what the hell are you going to do when you have someone coming after you? You're going to brace contact, right?
Right. Right.
It is. I don't get it. Especially the guys making $55 million a year. You're not going to go out there and protect and try to stick up for him. At least, I mean, hell, at least go get a flag thrown for, you know. I mean, Nixon got a flag for getting choked. you know.
Yes. Yes. And I don't know where that I don't know where that comes from. I think on defense, for example, I think Zaire Franklin is going to be a heck of a lot more fiery than Quay was. Uh, in fact, Zaire's had some penalties, but again, maybe
Good.
you take a 15-yard penalty if it gets your team fired up. Um, but I like to your point on offense. I don't know where that. I can't point a finger and say, "Oh, this is our igniter." But, Tucker Kraft, I think, is a guy like that. And of course, I don't think he was playing then in that game. But you need somebody to get to your point to get the rest of the guys riled up and have the fight in them. So yeah, and you're right. You know, T.J. Lang and Josh Sitton were that for the Aaron Rodgers teams. You know, so we do
Well,
miss
we
that.
even saw it from Tucker Kraft against the Lions. Brian Branch.
Yes,
Branch took off Kraft's helmet and threw it. You know, you can't tell me Tucker Kraft did out there, John, which is good.
right.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
you.
No, that's what I said. I think he's the guy that of anybody on the offense, I think has that juice. You know, and that's where, but you know, I don't see it in the other guys. You know, maybe that's part of the personality of their positions and whatever. I don't know, but yeah, you'd like to see a little bit more fire. I mean, this is the one area where I will critique. I think if you look at the different coaching tree that LaFleur came from, um, Sean McVay is definitely one to get excited. And I wish LaFleur had some of that same fire. He doesn't. And by now, I mean, 8 years in or 7 years in, what he's been, you would have seen it. He just doesn't have it. But that's where you hope somebody else on the team, the players, the guys on the field, would be able to, inspire that a little bit of nastiness.
Yeah, that's got to be like on stuff needs to be used as bulletin board material just to get the
Right.
team going. You know, I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you had
And I thought we were at a disadvantage against Dan Campbell. I think it was counteracted because Campbell's a rockhead and he makes some really terrible decisions a lot of times. So, but again, this Ben Johnson guy, I mean, he's a jerk, right? And but I think at some point, the good news for Ben Johnson is that he gets me at least fired up. I want to match that guy, right? I hope that works for our team, right? I hope our team has the same kind of attitude and comes out with fire against them next year, because running around with the shirt off and doing all the stupid antics and all that, you're just like, I'm sorry, let's beat this guy
so
and send him back.
I got a play drawn up for Ben Johnson. So the ball is lined up on the yard line that he's standing. You go trips to whatever side he's on, and you run that running back flare towards Ben Johnson. You overthrow it, you over pursue the ball, and you take him out.
There you go.
Solution done. Simple
There you
solution right
go.
there.
Yep.
No, I know what you're saying, and I think LaFleur has heard enough. I think last season and this season and whatever seasons that he always says all gas, no brakes, which is cool. But you can't let off the gas when you're doing all gas, which is he's done, and I think he's going to have a different looking team coming up this next year with more fire. I hope. I mean, I want to see Marshawn Lloyd healthy and playing a full season.
Yep. I mean, I'd like to see it. I mean, that's the interesting thing. So anyway, if we go like position by position,
yep.
At quarterback we lost Malik Willis. That's a big loss. That's a huge loss. Because in today's NFL, I don't know that you can. We're not back in the Brett Favre days where the guy never missed a game, right? I think going into a year, you have to figure Jordan is probably going to miss a game or two. Hopefully, that's all it is. And if you have a guy, I mean, Willis gave us a shot to win every single game that he had to play in. And so, I mean, I think that's going to be hard to replace. That the replacement is not on the roster right now. So that to me is a net negative. At running back, they lost Emmanuel Wilson, but like you said, Marshawn Lloyd, I think this guy is a breakout waiting to happen, but you got to stay healthy. The number one ability is availability, right? So this is going to be a huge year for him.
I saw an article on him quick, if you don't mind, saying for Marshawn Lloyd, the talent that he has, he should invest, no matter what it costs, money to go out and figure his body out because he can be a hell of a running back.
Yep.
And that's and I think going back on the Malik Willis thing too. Yeah, you're right. I don't see why they didn't have him out there more often, even if Jordan was healthy. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I and the other thing about it too is, and you don't see this. We didn't really see it. We didn't know who Malik Willis was. When he came here at the very end of training camp, I think, right before the opener in 24, and we had no idea who this guy was. Right? Uh, he was not very good in Tennessee, but under the tutelage of Matt LaFleur and some of the other coaches there, boy, did he have a turnaround. So yeah, we're gonna miss him. But so the other, couple other big losses on offense, Romeo Dubs, and we knew we were going to lose him. I don't think there was ever a world in which the Packers were going to ante up the money that it would take to keep him. He was also one of those guys that after 24, every time he caught the ball, I cringed because he's had so many concussions. Um, so I wish for him all the best. I hope he
Same.
does great in New England. But I actually think it could be a positive to move on with Matthew Golden. Golden really barely got out of the starters blocks last year. And that's not a surprise. If you look back at all the Packer receivers drafted over the last 15 or 20 years, none of them had huge rookie years because it's a hard position to learn. And so, I hope that the year has been good and that he is going to be ready and to play a significant role. And I think he's a much better receiver than Dobbs ever was, and adds more to the offense. We saw that in the playoff game against Chicago. So
Yep.
that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for us to get better. Next year, and if we can have a healthy Reed and a healthy Watson, and a healthy Wicks, I mean, that's a pretty dynamic group right there. So I'm pretty excited for that. And then on the offensive line, we lost Rasheed Walker and Elton Jenkins. And last year was not a good year for either one of them. So you could say, well, uh, maybe we'll get better. But the fact of the matter is, both those guys, until Jenkins got hurt, both of them were incredibly durable and were part of a pretty good offensive line. I don't think anybody thought Walker was a Pro Bowler, and he did struggle at times, but puts a lot of pressure on Jordan Morgan to be the guy. And I heard Toucher and Brian Balaga talking about that. And of course, both of them were bookend tackles for many, many years for the Packers, and they know what it takes, and it's not easy. And Morgan's had a couple of years, and he's going into year three, so he's kind of out of excuses. So that's
Yeah. I think that I trust in the Packers front office, and I think they're doing stuff. What they think is going to work, and until they prove me otherwise,
right.
I'm just going to go with what they're doing. Obviously.
What they did really well was they planned for the ultimate departures of Dobbs and Walker. They had guys. Now, whether those guys are as good, we'll see. I think in Golden's case, he could be a lot better. In Jordan Morgan, I don't know. I literally don't know. I mean, I think to his credit, he was probably playing out of position. He played all over the line. That's got to be hard to do, right? Hard to play, left tackle, right guard, left guard. I mean, he was all over the place. So the thing that I liked about what they've done is assuming that's, like I said, that Zach Tom can come back, they'll have continuity. The five guys were there last year, and I think that's a really good thing. I think offensive lines are, how do I say this, built, not bought. And what I mean by that is there's so much communication. We don't see that, right? We don't see that on TV. We just see somebody getting sacked and you blame the guy, right? But a lot of that is the communication, and they've got to work together. Five guys working as one. And I think that comes from familiarity, from knowing each other, from being in the room, from being at practice, and all that. And so I think that the Packers have done a good job of like not trying to get a high priced piece and put them in there. Let's hope for good health because that's a bit right now. I am concerned about their depth. I don't see a lot of guys. If Sean Ryan goes down, Banks goes down or whatever, I don't know who they're going to put in there. I just don't know. And so that's a concern. But if the five guys stay healthy, I think they can be okay.
Yeah, it's funny that you see that video of Rasheed Walker yelling for Love to run against the Browns.
Oh, because of Myles Garrett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Myles Garrett's done that to a lot of tackles. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think you look back to the COVID year when all those players they had to mix around the offensive line. You had guys that were playing multiple positions throughout the year and whatnot. I mean, they made it work with those guys. You just gotta hunker down and find some good, reliable offensive linemen that are valuable and switching from guard to tackle to center to wherever they got to go.
Right.
Because the main thing with Jordan is to keep him upright and give him enough
Well, I
time
was
to
going to
get the
say
ball off.
that's the key thing to me is really it's job number one on the offense because we've just determined they've got I love that running back room, right? They've got, assuming Lloyd can stay healthy, they've got guys that can do every step of the way. I love Chris Brooks as a pass protecting guy. He that's a really good back. And like we said about the wide receivers, they've got talent, they've got diversification, they guys that can do different things. Um, but the key to it all, like you said, is keeping Love clean, keeping him upright, keeping his jersey clean. That's the big thing. So
Yeah, it definitely is. I honestly, I think Baron Sorrell and Colin Oliver are going to make a big impact this year on defense. What are your thoughts?
Well, okay, so yeah, let's start with that. I mean, we know that Parsons is probably not going to be able to start the year. So, and Engabari left. I never thought Engabari had that much juice, but you know what? He could make some plays, especially in the run game. And so I think the way that the Halfley defense was, they had they like to rotate the guys in at the edge. Like I said, Gary never played. He was almost like a 50% player. LVN was about a 50% player. Of course, Parsons played a lot. But with Parsons out and Gary out and Engabari out, you're right. I mean, the cupboard's kind of bare there. They've got to hope that, Sorrell, both those guys had injury problems coming into the year. I loved Baron Sorrell coming out of the draft. I thought he was going to be really good. And he just didn't get a chance to play a whole lot. So we hope that, that he takes that big jump. There are cases where rookies, just can't get it figured out to get on the field, and we hope he can take that big jump. And then, of course, inside, we don't have Colby Wooden, and he was not a great pass rusher, but he did a lot of work against the run, and so the challenge is going to be, I think they might need to add one more big body inside at defensive tackle. Because both Wyatt and Hargrave are more of the penetrating guys. And both those can wreak havoc, so that's the good news, right? I think if everybody's healthy there and they have a little bit of juice coming off the other edge from Parsons, I think they can be a problem for opposing offensive lines. But we do have a ton of snaps that we have to make up from last year. And like I said, I'm not sure we have all the bodies in the room that we need right now.
Yeah, and I think there's still time to make moves. I mean, they got the salary cap, they got the draft, they got
Yeah. And
It's
and
they're
the
not
hidden
done.
thing, right, is that as soon as the draft's over, any of those guys they pick up in free agents don't count against the whole supplemental thing, right? So that's huge, right? And I guarantee you that's the way that they're thinking right now is to say, okay, with the contracts that were given out, we didn't quite get the windfall that we thought, but we should still get 4 compensatory picks next year. And remember, we don't have a number one this year because of Parsons. We don't have a number one next year because of Parsons. But if we have 4 extra picks in those mid rounds, that's where Gutenkust has done great in picking up, guys that end up really contributing. From I mean, just look at this from guys like Zach Tom, guys like Romeo Dubs. These are all like day 3 guys that they were able to pick up in the 4th and 5th rounds, and ended up being significant contributors for us. So
Do you think they use any of those extra picks to get maybe back into that first round?
next year, because they don't have them until next year.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think they use any of those picks
um,
to move
you
up?
know, I don't know, Brian. I think you know, uh, Gutenkust has moved up a lot, so it's definitely a possibility. But I think we're going to have to see, where the team is a year from now to really, and where the board falls. The good news about it is that apparently, and I'm not a student of this part, but I have heard that the draft next year is supposed to be a lot stronger than this year.
Yep.
So I think that that's really really good, and you could see some guys slip, and then if they slip into the top of the second round, and we can package a couple of picks, to move up and grab them, absolutely. I don't think the way the team is configured. If you had 7, well, let's say 6 plus 4 would be 10 picks. I don't know that they would want to exercise 10 picks because there's probably not 10 openings on the team, right? So that's why you would trade up, is because you'd want to, maybe get back down to like 7 picks. And in order to do that, you can move up in your place and get higher quality guys. So by the
Yeah, but
way,
sometimes
a
maybe
little
those extra picks produce diamonds in the rough.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I
So
honestly think when we get back Tucker Kraft and Micah Parsons, I think they're going to have a revenge season on their mind after missing last year due to injuries, big time. I think they
and
saw
I have a
enough,
lot of
especially.
confidence. I have a lot of confidence in both those guys. I mean, they're top quality athletes, and I think they're top quality people, and I think they really want to. I've fortunately, knock on wood. I don't know if there's any wood around, but fortunately, never had a serious injury like that to rehab. But from the stories, I mean, that's not a fun. That's not a fun rehabilitation, and so for those guys to go and really throw themselves at it, I think is commendable, and we should really be grateful that we have guys like that on the team.
Yeah, yeah. I can't speak for the knee or the legs injury, but I had a total reverse shoulder replacement in 2023, 24, 23. Anyways, yeah, it sucks. I'm still dealing with it. But I just think technology, um, and stuff, and what players can come back from nowadays versus what they could back
Right.
in the '90s is just
Yeah, they
leaps
have the
and bounds
best.
better, and it's just
They have
crazy.
the best medical advice, and the therapists and all that. So that's really
Yeah,
good. By the way, I don't know if you want to segue into the whole Max Crosby thing or not, but that was kind of an interesting story this
yeah. What
week
What are your
too.
thoughts on that? I think like my opinion is, I for some reason I think at the last second Baltimore got cold feet, obviously, but I think they changed their mind to Trey Hendrickson right before the deadline too,
Yeah.
right before it went
Well,
live.
like you said, would you rather have Trey Hendrickson, who is not the same player as Max Crosby is? I think he's a notch below, and he's older. But keep both number ones, right? I would go with the Trey Hendrickson move every day of the week, right? And so, um, However, let me preface this by saying that when Crosby was, quote unquote, available, there's no way in heck. I mean, I don't think the Packers ever would have been in after the Parsons thing, but we didn't have the picks anyway. But if we hadn't done the Parsons move, I would have been totally against the Max Crosby thing. Don't get me wrong, he's a terrific player. He's an absolute monster. But there's an interesting parallel between his career and JJ Watt. And if you look at JJ Watt got 92 of his 114 career sacks. So 80%, 85% of his production before his age 29 year. He played to 33, but the last 4 years he played, it was basically a part-time player. Now, I think his last year he played every game, but he missed huge chunks of time. And I think that Max Crosby is a similar kind of player where he's so finely tuned athletically that uh, parts start to break down. The human body wasn't made to do some of the stuff that these guys asked them to do. And it's to Crosby's credit. He's made himself into a terrific player. But
Yep.
I would not want to be investing what I would need to invest in him to get that kind of production, because what you're getting is not what he's done before. So, like I said, all you got to do is look at JJ Watt's career, and if you invested in him at age 29, at the peak of his, where he was as 3-time defensive MVP and all that, um, you got a shadow, just a complete uh, 20% of that production that you would think you were getting for all, because the other thing is with Crosby, Baltimore, in addition to the two number ones, they were going to have to like extend him because he only had 2 more years left. You don't give up two number ones to get a guy for 2 years and then well, I hope you come back. No, they were probably going to rip up his contract, extend him for 4 or 5 years. But that's a lot of money. It's a lot of cap.
Yeah.
They still have to pay Lamar Jackson because Jackson, I guess they can franchise him or something like that. But, I mean, they've got issues there. And that's, to your point, I think they started to look at the balance and said, I think we're giving up too much for this. So I think they made a good decision. And, teams were obviously, or fans, I should say, I don't know about teams, but the fans were obviously upset, but I think Baltimore, I mean, I think it's kind of like they knew they had that window, right? Because the trade could not be finalized until the league year started. So they had that window of time and they used it to get all the, available information and all the medicals and everything. And they even got outside medical, not just their own staff. They got the Dallas physician, who incidentally was the one that operated on Patrick Mahomes. So he's like one of the number one orthopedic guys in the country. And I don't know what he said, but at least they had him look over Max Crosby's, medical records. And, so, I mean, I give them, I think they made a good decision for Baltimore. So,
What I think is funny too is how they made all these moves on their roster before. From what I heard, they made a bunch of moves to like acquire Crosby, and then they made the deal before it went live or whatever. And then right before it kicked off, they backed out, and then they had all these positions to fill. But that shouldn't be an issue for them. But then on the bonus side, the Raiders are getting him back, and they got N'Kobe Dean, they got Quay Walker, they got this guy, they got that guy, and they're getting Max Crosby back. So I mean, maybe it's a silver lining for the black and silver, you know?
sure. Yeah, exactly. Because that was the question I had, was whether with all those contracts, I think they invested like $100 million in cap money in all those free agent acquisitions. Now they had the money, but they were spending it as if they weren't going to have to pay Crosby. So that was the only question I had: is can they Can they absorb Crosby and all those guys? And I guess they can. We'll see. But like you said, yeah, that could end up actually being a good thing for them. And
Well, I
maybe
thought I read that the Raiders did that with they did that with Crosby's contract still on the pay, on the bank on the books. So even if it would have fell through and getting what they got, they still would have cleared the cap.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that worked because basically, there's like one set of rules before whatever day that was, March 11th or something like that, and then the clock strikes midnight, and everyone has to be in compliance and all that. So, hey, other topic I'm sure you want to talk about is Kyler Murray to Minnesota. What do you think about that?
um
I saw your little meme and a little in quotes.
it's just too funny. I mean, he's I don't know. Sometimes you can't blame these players for where they end up. College careers don't translate to NFL careers. Um, Now that he's in the Vikings, I don't root for him to do good at all. So
No,
I think that he's going to give McCarthy a run for his money. I'll tell you that.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? As I think about it, I mean, Minnesota had nothing to lose because they only have to pay him like 1.3 million. Because Arizona's paying all of the rest of his contract, so it's like a no risk thing for them. And you have to wonder, did Murray have what kind of coaching did he have in Arizona? I mean, was he in a system that was going to play to his strengths? What I think is that I'm not sure Murray's like if you look at the way that O'Connell likes to play quarterback, it's not like a Justin Fields kind of thing or a Michael Vick kind of thing where you run around and make plays and all that. It's kind of one of those more system based systems, right? Um, so that's going to be interesting to see whether that can fit. But I did hear somebody else say today that it will make playing them a lot more of a pain because you just don't know what to expect. You don't know, like, okay, you can kind of like when they had Kirk Cousins or when they had uh who was the guy that was
Darnold,
what's that?
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold. When they had those guys, you could kind of predict what they were going to do, right? Kyler Murray's just a wild card. You don't know what he's going to do.
And you
I
can't
thought,
see him. You can't see him behind the line. You can't see the quarterback.
right, and he's just a different kind of player. So, I mean, I think, like I said, I think to me it's a no risk move for Minnesota. I don't know what's going to happen, and you're right. I mean, it puts a heck of a lot of pressure on nine.
Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But
yeah.
like
It
you
might be
said,
no risk now, but they might risk losing 9 in the future, maybe losing Justin Jefferson too.
well, no. The thing about it is they only have Murray for a year. And his deal has a no tag clause, so he's one and done. I mean, if he ends up doing well, he's going to do what Daniel Jones did or Darnold did, and they're going to go somewhere and make a lot of money. If he does crappy, then Minnesota cuts him or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I like I said, I don't think Minnesota has any risk in the deal, but the other part of it too is they haven't positioned themselves for the long term. So unless this move lights a fire under 9 and he can suddenly become who they thought he was, they're back in the quarterback derby next year. Yeah.
That's
So
crazy to see the money they spent last year in free agency and contracts, and to see how we did this last year. That whole front office should have been unemployed once
well,
the season ended.
Quessy did, yeah. Quessy got fired, so that'll be
Yeah,
interesting. The other interesting thing that I thought is that Minnesota doesn't. They have kind of a de facto GM right now, but they haven't really put somebody in that seat, and I think that's kind of weird. So that whole firing of Quessy was kind of weird because it happened so late. You would have thought if they really wanted to move forward without him, they would have done it right after the end of the season, and then they could have chosen from all those other GMs that were out there in the market. So I don't know what they're going to do, but that's their problem, not ours.
Yeah, what they're probably gonna do is go up and buy another Love Boat, and get in trouble. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that was notorious. Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
I
They have been notorious for being kind of just wacky
flamboyant,
stuff. Yeah.
wacky. Yeah.
So
Um,
what about the Bears moving to Indiana?
I was just going to ask you about that. What are your okay? So here's my thought on this. A, I think it's absolutely hilarious. B, people are like, oh, it's only 24 minutes away from Chicago. It's actually closer to the current location than it is Arlington Heights,
Right.
and you got to figure the traffic,
Right.
the stupid tolls, the stupid idiot drivers in Illinois. It's a nightmare all around, and I couldn't think of a better team to have it happen to.
I know. I, here's my take on this. I really think the fans of Chicago, and by the way, my podcast host, if you can see my flag back here, I host a podcast called It's the Groove. It's a music podcast, not a football podcast, but my co-host is a Chicago native, and interestingly enough, her take on it is neither one of those sites is any good because Arlington Heights is not really Chicago. It's out. I think it's past O'Hare Airport. It's in the northwest suburbs, and of course Hammond, Indiana. That's not Chicago either. And I think her comment is that it needs to be in Chicago. It needs to be downtown, like kind of where the current stadium is. But okay, so here's my take on this. The whole reason that they're doing this is they don't have enough money to buy the stadium that they need. I think the solution is the doggone McCaskey family has to buck up and sell the team because this is 2025. If you want to compete, we're really fortunate. And by the way, rest in peace, Bob Harlan. We lost him this past week. Bob Harlan is the reason we're having a Packer theme podcast today because his decisions under his watch provided the stewardship to enable Lambeau Field to be renovated to the quality it is now so that we're able to sustain a franchise in the NFL's smallest metropolitan market. Chicago is huge, like one of the top three, I guess. LA, New York, and Chicago, I think. So they're one of the top three areas. Their organization does not have the cash to construct a stadium, so they're reliant on state money. That's why they're going after these sites, either in Arlington or in Hammond, Indiana. And Indiana's offering to pay for it, right?
Yeah,
I just look at that and say if they want to belong in this league now and compete, they need to have ownership that can fiscally compete. And they don't. The McCaskey family might have a net worth of $1 billion, which is a lot to you and me, but that whole net worth is tied up in the team. That's all they've got. They're not like a Jerry Jones or a Stan Kroenke or some of these other owners that have literally billions from their other investments and businesses and things like that.
right.
And I just think it's a disgrace to the NFL in the third market to play in that dump in next to Lake Michigan. I think they need it. They deserve a better stadium, but they're not going to get it as long as the McCaskies are running the joint. Because guess what? I'm a taxpayer too, and if Green Bay came to me or Wisconsin came to me and said, your taxes are going to go up by 20% because we need to build the Packers a stadium. I'm like, I love the Packers, but somebody should be buying that, right? They make
But
enough
then
money.
in Brown County, they had a sales tax went up for whatever for a while to pay for.
Yeah,
I didn't
and
care, whatever, you
that was
know.
peanuts, though. That was
But
peanuts. We
like
didn't
like
even know it.
to go back on what you said though, Dave, is there's not an off season or season I can remember going by Lambeau Field where they are not doing some type of restoration, or they moved the pro shop, they moved the Hall of Fame. When I first
Last
went to
year
Lambeau
they
Field for the first time, when I was in my mid-20s, the pro shop was, or the Hall of Fame was,
down the street.
but downstairs, not down the
Oh, I
street, but
thought
I
you
think it
meant
was
it used to be
downstairs.
down the street. It used to be down
Yeah,
Lombardi Avenue a few
and
blocks or
now
something.
they got now it's two level Hall of Fame. They've got a huge pro shop.
Yep.
They're open 364 days a year.
Yep.
I mean, it's bar none. I mean,
And it's
the new
quality.
the new
It's quality.
the,
I mean, you
the new
can't walk in that place and not feel the quality. You feel the
the new
history.
video board they put up a couple years ago. The
Yes.
huge
Yep.
whatever foot video board. And even the draft this last year, I met up with Mr. First Down, Tennessee Titans fan.
Okay.
He was there, and I've had him on my podcast before, and just his reaction to Lambeau Field is like a mecca. I always tell people, even if you're a Bears fan, you can't knock the history in Green Bay.
Yes. Yes.
It's something that not everyone has a chance to go to. So when you get a chance to go to something like that,
Absolutely.
you recognize and you respect the history of football when you walk into that Hall of Fame.
And here's the difference, right? So there's history there, and you can walk on that same piece of concrete that the Lombardi Packers walked across because they saved a piece of it, and it's right there in the tunnel, right? And you can do a Lambeau leap, and all these kinds of things. So yeah, there's a ton of history, but the stadium itself is a quality stadium. I've never been to a game in Soldier Field, but friends of mine that have gone say it's an absolute dump. That it's dirty, it's disgusting, and I mean it. So again, I mean, and I don't think anybody's arguing that they should stay there. It's just the fact that they don't have a plan, and that to me is just really discouraging. I mean,
I was
I
reading an
I would
article.
love.
Someone was saying that if there's not anything by the end of the month, that they're just gonna accept the bid and go to Indiana. So I mean,
Yeah.
let them go to Indiana, and then you'll see all these Illinois Packer fans or Illinois Bears fans become Packer fans because they're so pissed off
True.
at the Bears franchise.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and like you said, I mean, it to me, it's like I don't know. I mean, you've had the Chargers moved up the road from San Diego to L.A. I'm not a Charger fan. I don't, I feel bad for the people of San Diego because that's a bad drive, driving in L.A. traffic and all that kind of
Rams
stuff.
went from St. Louis to Los Angeles. The Cardinals didn't they move too or not back in the day?
Years ago, yeah,
Yeah, but I
they were
mean,
the
yeah,
St.
I
Louis
mean,
Cardinals when I
exactly.
was a kid growing up, and
I
then
mean,
they
could you
moved to.
imagine the Packers up and moving to New Mexico or something like that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, so it was interesting. They were talking about, I think on the Bears, one other. I don't think it's a serious candidate, but one other thought they had was like the Quad Cities, which is actually Iowa. And I heard the comment. I said, "Well, you can't give Iowa an NFL team because then Minnesota's going to want one too."
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, the people I know that are hardcore Bear fans are just disgusted by that, and they want the team downtown, and but obviously there's no plan for how they could possibly do that, and you know, so
So what are we looking for in the draft this year?
best player available. Actually, I said that, and I actually think that with one exception, I think they've actually filled the slots that they needed to fill in free agency, which means that they can have the luxury of taking the best player available. The one exception is at cornerback, and I just don't want to run back Carrington Valentine and 25 again. I just
My biggest
Bullards.
thing. So this is my take on Nixon. When we had pressure on the quarterback, he looked good last year. When we did, and he got burned. Only reason why he got that contract extension is it was before they made the rule on kickoff. And that's the only reason why he got that contract, because what he did on kickoffs. And all of a sudden, you're paying this guy all this money, and like, oh, let's try him. He's fast. Let's try him at corner, and then it didn't work out. So I just they got to figure something out with him.
Well, and the problem is there's really not a whole lot behind him. I mean, if they had a good solution, he wouldn't be the guy. He would be back at returner. By the way, getting Sky Moore at returner, that we didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
I think that's a huge upgrade. I'm anxious to see, and like we've had other players too, that at the end of training camp, it's like, well, we can't afford the roster spot, and that to me has been a massive goof. I think you have to have a roster spot on a guy that's designated as your return guy, and you have to find that guy. So I hope that with this decision now, bringing him in, that will then, we'll just cut and paste. We'll just put him in, and he's on the 53. He's going to be on the active game day roster, and then every punt, every kickoff, he's the guy, right? So I hope we can do that. And last year we had Dubs returning punts. I mean, the only thing about it is he could catch the ball. And a lot of times when there's a punt and they're punting to us, I'm like, just catch the ball. But these other teams, they have returners that'll get 8 to 10 yards, and that over the course of the game, that adds up, right? And better field position and shorter, drives closer to getting field goals or in the red zone or whatever. So that's an area that we've just been, for the pardon the pun, but we've been punting for the last few years. We just have a guy back there to catch the ball and just fair catch it, right?
that one game we had Josh Jacobs returning kickoffs. He had more production in that one game than Nixon had the whole season.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's you got to figure something out back there, because
Yeah.
that could be a difference in the game.
It could, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's a good thing. Just to finish the thought, though, I really
Sorry.
think we need to come out of the draft with, one or two cornerbacks that can at least, push the starters and compete and add some depth. I also would love to get another edge guy, just because I'm a little worried about Parsons coming back and missing Gary and Engabari and all that. So, that those to me would be the big things. But I honestly believe that, Gutenkous is going to go best player available, and it could be another offensive lineman, because that's another area of need. So the one area that I hope we don't draft is wide receivers. I think we've got a good group there. And I think linebackers too. I don't think if you pick the linebacker, I'm not sure you'd have to cut somebody or trade somebody, right? Because they typically don't carry that many of them, and I think we've got a pretty good group with ones we have. So yeah.
You mentioned the edge player. I believe Josh Sweat wants a trade. His former coach, John
Yes.
Gannon, is
Yeah.
our D coordinator. You think we
Yep.
see him in Green Bay?
Interestingly enough, Sweat played for Gannon in Philly, and then he followed him to Arizona. So there is logic in your question. It really depends on what they're going to ask for him. I don't think his cap number is bad. So from that standpoint, I think we've got room. But what's Arizona going to ask? I think that
Right.
one might wait a while and fester, and maybe in training camp, if he's still disgruntled in Arizona, I think that's when maybe you'll see a deal. But I would, we've already given up our ones. I don't think he would fetch a one anyway, but he could go for a 2 or 3. And if we went into the draft without our 1 and our 3, that's no, I can't see us doing that. So maybe if
Maybe
they take
LaFleur will
like
give his brother some Packer stock.
what's that?
Maybe LaFleur will
Oh,
give his brother some Packer stock
there you
at a
go.
discount.
Well, that is the interesting thing, right? Is that I could see the two of them doing deals, because obviously they're friendly and they know each, they're buddies, and all that kind of stuff. The other one that I could see doing a deal with is Salah, because you've read about the connection between LaFleur and Salah. They
Oh
were
yeah.
they were roommates and stuff like that. So I think those are good moves to think about. Like I said, the only hesitancy I would have would be the draft compensation, or maybe they trade a player for him. Maybe that you look at Could they trade? What would you think if they gave up Wicks? Would you do that deal?
Um, I don't know. Maybe we can see how fast he is, and we can put his 40 time against Keyshawn Nixon's 40 time, and maybe put Sweat at corner. No, I mean, if a trade makes sense and whatever, and you're not giving up too much to risk your future and draft picks, I don't see why not. I mean, why
Well,
not give him a chance?
like we said, it's all depending upon what Arizona's asking. If they're asking
Right.
two or three, I don't want to take our top, that much draft capital, because you look at it and why we're in the position we're in the position now with guys like you look at that wide receiver room. Well, we could lose Romeo Dubs, and we're fine. We're fine, but it's because we've been drafting guys every single year. And
Do you
the
remember
same
me
thing.
saying before the season started that if we had a feeling they weren't going to be able to retain like Dobbs or anybody, we should trade him for a first round draft pick during the season? You look back and too bad we didn't do that, right?
Well, yeah, I don't think he would have ever gotten a first, but
Right. I know,
yeah,
but I just
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the other way
So
to look at it is that Dobbs was a fourth rounder, and I think the compensatory thing will be a fourth rounder next year, right? So in essence, he replaced himself. And you had 4 years of him playing, and then you get another fourth. It's like, well, shoot, that's a pretty good deal. Do
I saw
that.
one thing where we had 4 picks in the first round in the draft coming up. No, was it? Where did I see that? I saw we had like 4 picks in the fourth round of a draft with the people that we.
Oh, you said the first round. Yeah, yeah. I think Willis, Dubs, who's the other one? Gary. I'm not Gary. Quay.
And our
Um,
current in the current fourth round.
yeah, and the current fourth round. That's it. Yeah, yeah. So
Isn't that that's
I think you're
crazy?
right. I mean, I think we'll have four. Now it's possible that if Willis does really really well, that could go up to a third. And I think like Walker, not Quay, but Rashid. I think Rashid would be like a sixth or something like that.
Oh, we found our
So
offensive line. We can draft them all in the fourth round.
right, yeah, and that's what people are saying. That Gutey's so good at picking guys in the fourth. You look at the guys he's picked up; it's just amazing. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, that's and especially considering that they're thinking next year's draft's going to be pretty deep. So, yeah, I mean, I look at that and I think he's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. So I'm kind of happy with that. I think we could, that's the kind of thing. If you go back way back before you were born, Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson did that when they first took over Dallas, and Herschel Walker, and they got a whole bunch of picks for him.
Wait, did you say
And
before I was born?
yeah, before you were born, yeah,
What year is
that was
this?
like what was like 88 or 89 or something like that.
I was 6 or 7 years old. I was around.
Okay, all
Come
right.
on,
I was
I'll be
giving I
44.
was
I'll be
giving you
44
the
in May.
benefit of the doubt there. But what I was going to say is, if you look at the guys that they picked, they just picked, like they picked like 5 or 6 all pro guys. They weren't all pros right away, but like 3 or 4 years down the road, they were like all pro guys, like top guys in that one draft. And they set their team up. That was the genesis of their success in the 90s, is that draft when they traded Herschel Walker, got all those picks, and then they took some of those picks and they traded them. So they kept like cascading, and they ended up getting, I don't know however many picks, but just guys that were just ended up being really really the cornerstone of that franchise, came out of that one thing. So I look at this and say that could be us in a few years. If we can hit the 2027 draft, and like you said, use some of those picks and move up a little bit and pick some really good players. And that, that's, you look at, I mean, every once in a while there'll be, a team that'll, like, I think the Rams, and they got Bradford, not Bradford, when they got Matthew Stafford, that was like a trade that ended up really, working out really, really well for them. But most of the teams, most of the, teams that end up doing well and being consistently, they build through the draft. So I love the idea about being able to get, to get a bunch, collect a bunch of picks off this. So
Yeah, I mean, you bring up the Stafford, and then the next season the Rams win the Super Bowl because of
right,
everything.
yeah, but that's an
So
outlier. That's an outlier, and they weren't consistently. They didn't consistently win. But yeah, that does happen. One more thing. Obviously, we're talking about the fact that we went completely out of character and traded 2 number 1 picks for Micah Parsons. But here's the deal: Packers were never going to get a Micah Parsons drafting where we draft, right?
right.
Because we're drafting in the 25th, 26th, 27th selection every year. So to be able to trade, picks that low to get a once in a lifetime player, I mean, you're looking at a guy that, I mean, obviously, I think Dallas totally mismanaged that. There's no way that he should have ever gotten to that point. But he's a guy like Reggie White, and top quality pass rushers like Myles Garrett never came available. Crosby did, but then it it blew up. So to get a top quality edge rusher, sometimes you got to make a move like that, right? So I was very supportive of that because I was like, yeah, there's no way we're going to end up with a succession of Rashawn Garys and LVNs and players like that because we're drafting lower. Parsons was like, I think, a top 5 pick, if I remember correctly, when he
Yeah,
came out.
I still think back to last year when that happened, and I remember I've said this before, but I was in the parking lot during training camp. I was hanging out with Iowa Joe, the founder of OPE and Ohana Packers Network, and
Okay.
hanging out with some other Packer fans. We're at the part where the players pull out of the garage and they pull onto Oneida Street and they go
Okay.
down, whatever. And it was before the last preseason game, I think, of the year, like on a Thursday or a Friday, and they're lighting up fireworks, probably getting just to make sure everything's running and whatnot. And
Right.
oh yeah, they're getting ready to, they're shooting off fireworks to announce whatever the Micah Parsons trade. And everyone just kind of laughed at me. And like a week or so later, it happened, and I was
It
posting
happened.
those pictures of like, oh yeah, Micah Parsons spotted that Culver's in the pier, this and
That's
that,
right.
and everyone's like, oh no, whatever. And sure enough, he ended up coming to Green Bay.
Yep.
Like you said, I think it's worth it. You talked about losing what the tackle we traded. I can't even think of his name now. For Colby Wooden. Well, we have Warren Brinson, we got Nazir Stackhouse, we got Carl Brooks. I mean, we have guys that we can rotate in there. I think we have enough to shore up the defensive line until Parsons gets back. We have Devontae White, got Hargrave. We still got people we could sign in free agency.
Yep.
I think it's possible. I think
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, and I'm a big believer in subtraction or addition by subtraction. I think Gutey knows what he's doing. He wouldn't be there if he didn't, because
Right.
the people would speak and want him gone. They wouldn't have extended him. They wouldn't have extended Russ Ball. They wouldn't have extended Matt LaFleur. I just think they gotta make some moves, and I think it's going to be a good year for us, and hopefully we can be healthy for most of the year, and
Yeah.
and and I'm also injuries suck, but I'm glad they happened at a time to where they had recovery time to come back healthy this next season. I mean, you look at Jaden Reed when he got hurt, it sucked, but we had the depth on the receiving depth chart
Yep. Yep.
to make up for him being gone, and he was able to get 2 surgeries done at once because he had that Jones fracture and then he had the broken collarbone, so he was able to get both done, come back healthy.
Yep.
I think Watson's going to be our number 1, Reed, Golden, Wicks. Then you got to add in Tucker Kraft. He's going to be a huge piece of that offense too. That is a lot to look forward to, I think, this year, and I'm excited.
Yep.
So
we only have to wait 6 more months, Brian.
Six more months. Yeah,
That's
but
the
we got the draft.
yeah. That's the thing that sucks. It's like I was thinking about it. The Packer season's been over for about 2 months, but we still have 6 more months till real football. Now, yeah, like you said, the draft will happen. I guess it's late April, so we got another like 6 weeks or whatever, and then OTAs, and then mini camps, and then training camp starts. And I always try to get up to training camp at least once, because that's fun. That I was. You mentioned going to Lambeau, and I definitely endorse that comment that every football fan around should try to get to Lambeau once. But the other thing that's so cool is when you get to go to Ray Nitschke Field and training camp,
Yeah.
because I've been at other training camps, and there's nothing quite like you have unparalleled access to the players, whether it's right there on, I don't know what's it called, Military Avenue, or Armed Forces Drive, or something
Um.
like that. Is it Armed Forces
Yeah.
Drive? Something like that. But
Oneida. Yeah. Oneida Street, Lombardi, whatever.
yeah, where the players are riding the bikes and all that, and that's just a classic. You just got to see that. Every year, I stop and I watch after practice, and just watch the players drive back, and they're riding back on the bikes, and the kids jogging next to them carrying their helmet, and it's just unbelievable. It always hits my heart. It's part of Americana. It's just that doesn't happen in other cities, and then even when you're watching them practice, every year you get in conversations with them. Now they have a job to do, right? So they have to focus on what they're doing. But there are times when you can chat with them and stuff like that. And again, it's just it's an unbelievably unique experience to be that close to the players. So
Right. I can remember a story back from when I was living in Madison, and my wife is actually from De Pere, which is, we're legit 6.6 miles from Lambeau Field from my house. But when we were dating or whatever, I went to a Packers training camp with her. And this is back when digital cameras were, the thing, right? And I had this digital camera, and we went to the practice at the old the one before Ray Nitschke Field was built. What's that? Uh,
Clark
the
Kinkle,
Clark Hinkle Field, right
right there on
outside.
Oneida, right there on
Yeah, so
Oneida.
they didn't have the green blocker on the fence, right?
Right,
And
right.
my battery was dying, so she went quick and bought me a new whatever. Long story, but no, this is back when they had like Favre and Rodgers, and they had Vince Young as a backup too,
Okay.
and then they had Charles Woods, and they had like AJ Hawk, and it was just so cool to be like right there by, just to see these guys, the guys you see on TV, the guys that were like bigger than life to you on TV, and
I know.
they're right in
Yeah.
front of you.
Yeah. That my funny story. I moved here in 2002, and so in the springtime, and so one of their first OTAs or something. I don't think it was even minicamp. It was just an OTA. They were just practicing, and my office was located really close to Lambeau. It was on Lombardi, like Lombardi and Military, basically at the corner there. And so I was coming back from a meeting, and I'm driving up Oneida, and I had forgotten about practice, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, that's so I pulled into the lot, got out of my car, walked over and watched about half an hour of the practice. And like I said, I was literally between, there was a chain link fence between me and Brett Favre. And I'm like,
Yep.
this is unbelievable, right? And so, after a little bit, I get back in the car, go back to the office, and I pull into so I was literally there for like maybe only 30 minutes or something like that. I pull into the office, go into the building, and one of the guys says, "Hey, Dave, how was Packer practice?" And I'm like, oh my God, this really is a small town. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So that was, like you said, that was my first taste of that. I used to go to Eagles practices when I lived on the East Coast, and you're 100 yards away from them. I mean, you need binoculars, to see what was going on,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. It was still fun. I still enjoyed going up there, but boy, the uh, ability to connect with The players is just unparalleled in Green Bay.
It's
So
crazy because uh, LaFleur's in the Pierce School District. You know, he has
oh
two kids,
yeah, yeah.
and at like basketball games, like in the youth basketball circuit or whatever, like all of a sudden, you know, if he walks in, it just goes quiet, and everyone's like, you can just hear the going on with everybody else, and like teams after the games take team photos, and they ask him to be part of the photo.
Oh,
It's just cool, you know. It's just cool to see someone like that in public and just think, oh, he's just another person, you know. Where else, like out in L.A. or New York, they'd be getting mobbed, you know. So
right.
it's just cool to be able to be in the same town as something like that. And during the season, you see a player, at a restaurant or out in public, and it's just like, oh, hey, look, there's so and so, or
Right.
there's. I remember being at Bay Park Square Mall when I first moved up here, and around Christmas time, a big SUV pulled into the mall. I was walking out, and they were walking in, two big diamond stud earrings, bald, shiny head. Guy who's kind of walking in with his collar, Donald Driver. So it's
Wow.
just kind
Yeah.
of cool to
Yeah.
you know just to see and
Yep.
see them around town, and I don't know. It's just an awesome community, awesome atmosphere.
I don't care whether it's Arlington Heights or Hammond. Chicago will never have that, right? That just will never happen. So,
Gary,
you know,
Indiana, they're gonna have bulletproof everywhere. Tell you what, we were coming back. So my daughter had a lacrosse tournament in Westfield, Indiana, last summer, and like we were like trying to like follow her GPS on the van and trying to follow that and versus like Chicago, Indiana traffic. You make one wrong move and you're in the wrong place. Well, that happened to us. We were supposed to get over, and it was too late by the time we realized it, and we took the Gary, Indiana exit. And I'm like, oh my god, everything's boarded up, and people are just like, kids are like, Dad, why is the town like that? I'm like, it's a bad part of the United States, whatever. And if that wasn't bad enough, we had to go through Gary, Indiana, and then you get back like heading towards Chicago, and we couldn't get over enough, so we had to take the expressway or whatever to go through like downtown Chicago, where like this Sears Tower is like right next to you, and you had to pay $15 toll, and been in traffic for like 3 or 4 hours of barely even moving, and it's just like, yeah, this sucks.
I know. Yep.
But
Yep.
I'm just glad that I'm up in Green Bay, and if you're having a bad day or whatever, just go there and just lose your mind and walk around. Walk inside, walk in the atrium, walk in the pro shop.
We're
You know,
definitely fortunate that we live where we do. And by the way, for those of you, Brian and I always do a little segment on Uncle Mike's Bakery. So I was there today. It's Pie Day, so it was buy a pie and get a ice cream for free. So I mean, they're just an awesome business. I probably am. I'm close to being on a first name basis with some of their staff. I hate to admit that, but uh, in related news, the diet's not going so well. But
it's the weekend.
I copped something new today, and I tried it. It's actually pretty good. It's a savory Kringle. So they have like three different varieties of them, but this one was like hash browns and bacon, and there's some cheese, and there's some other stuff in there. So it's a savory Kringle. So it's kind of interesting. So next time you're there, you might want to try one of those. It's good for breakfast, and then you can get the sweet and the savory. And
Yeah, we have Uncle Mike's up here in De Pere, right by the high school.
yep,
Haven't been there in a while, but we usually when we go there, we get the Kringle, depending on which one, whatever my wife has a taste for.
yep.
But speaking of giving shout outs to local businesses, Scray Cheese. If you follow me on Facebook, I have a Cheese Talk Pod Facebook page, and when I hit 1,000 followers, I'm doing a cheese curd sampler giveaway.
Wow.
Six 14-ounce bags of fresh cheese curds, um, fresh yellow, Cajun, French onion,
Ooh.
ranch, garlic pepper, and dill and garlic.
Oh, those sound
Shipped.
great.
So I'm 364 followers away from meeting that goal. So when that happens, I'll randomly pick a winner and get some cheese shipped out to you. So yeah.
And you do that same sampler for guests of your podcast too. I think I heard you say that, right? I'll
Actually,
expect a shipment.
yeah, right. A food sampler. No, Todd Friedel won last year,
Okay.
the curd sampler. So yeah, great local business. I support them. And you mentioned Uncle Mike's knows you on a first name basis. They know me on a first name basis because they're literally like a 40-second drive from my house to go to the cheese shop. So
Yep. Yep.
so yeah,
Another good reason to live in Wisconsin is the cheese is unparalleled. So yeah, that's great.
yeah, for sure. Well, I want to thank you for being on tonight,
Yep.
Dave. Appreciate it. We went over, but it was fun. An hour and a half. Hey, talking football and cheese and Kringles.
Yep.
You can't go
Yep.
wrong there.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, you
Well, you
gotta
stay
just make.
safe and hope the storm isn't too bad. I think you may get a little bit more than we do. I'm in Appleton, but it's kind of looking like we're all going to get hammered here pretty soon. So
Yeah, hammered by
a
snow,
good
not by
excuse to
alcohol.
spend Sunday and maybe Monday hunkered down and listening to podcasts.
No.
And if you get tired of cheese, if you get tired of football podcasts, you can log on to itsthegroove.com, and we've got a great one up that just went live yesterday about Anita Baker's Rapture album celebrating its 40th anniversary. If you're into that kind of music, it's great. We go track by track. So great time. And Brian, I'm sure we'll be talking again as it gets closer to the season or once the season starts. I appreciate you having me on. It's always a blast.
Yeah, I look forward to having you on closer to the draft. Maybe like after the draft, maybe
We'll see.
during the draft. Well, I'll reach out. But yeah, again, I want to give a shout out to Open Network, Iowa Joe, Mike Colano, for giving me the platform to podcast. I appreciate it. And follow them at ohanapackers.net. And yeah, Dave, thanks again. And
Thanks,
I will
Brian.
see you next time. Have a good night. Be safe.
See ya. Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
You too.